This weekend, one of the opportunities that we have in our setup on Zoom is to listen to Martin Luther King straight from his own mouth. As we listen to these words, which I believe are a compilation or collection of things that he said across the span of his ministerial career, I just want to remember the tension, the pressure, the cauldron into which he spoke. Let us hear the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his own words.
In the midst of this faithlessness, they find themselves crying out, Lord, I believe, but help by mine unbelief. They want the bread of faith. And then that is a quest for the bread of hope. Everybody needs this bread. Everybody wants it. When you stop hoping, you die. And yet so many people have lost hope today. They feel that they have nothing to look forward to. So many young people have lost hope. They have become cynical. They see all of the problems of the world. So many young men feel that there's nothing to look forward to in life but going to the battlefield, giving one's life maybe in something very futile. They look around the world and they lose hope. So many people find themselves crying out with Shakespeare's Macbeth that life is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So many find themselves crying out with the philosopher Schopenhauer that life is an endless pain with a painful end. So many find themselves crying out with Paul Laurence Dunbar, a crust of bread and a corner to sleep in, a minute to smile and an hour to weep in, a pint of joy to a peck of trouble, and never to laugh that the moans come double, and that is life. And in the midst of this hopelessness, men and women reach out for the bread of hope. Then that is a quest for the bread of love. Everybody needs this bread. We need it in two ways. First, we need to learn how to love. The great problem of mankind today is still that there's too much hatred around. More than anything else, we've got to learn to love. In America, the white man must love the black man, and the black man must love the white man, because we are all tied together in a single garment of destiny. And we can't keep having riots every summer in our cities. We can't keep having all of these problems all over our nation. Our white brothers must understand that we are too poor. And the federal government has enough money to get rid of slums and poverty and get rid of these conditions that make for riots. There's no point in continuing to make up excuses. Our white brothers have got to come to see one thing. We are in America and we are here to stay, and we've got to learn how to live together. We ain't going nowhere. That's the basic need in this country. There are 22 million Negroes that we have counted up. The census figures give us that. Now, they don't take under consideration the number of Negroes that ran when they saw the census man coming, thinking it was somebody to collect the bill. So when you add the numbers, they didn't get us at least 30 million Negroes in America. And we are here to stay. White brothers have got to learn to live with us. Now in our anger and in our response to the oppression and the hatred that we face, we must not, turn around and do the same thing. You see, you never solve one problem of tyranny by substituting a new tyranny. A doctrine of black supremacy is as evil as a doctrine of white supremacy. God is not interested merely in the freedom of black men and brown men and yellow men, but God is interested in the freedom of the whole human race. The creation of a society where all men will live together as brothers, and every man will respect the dignity and the worth of human personality. And the one way that every man will be able to do this is to remember that one word that Jesus talked about so often. And that is the word love. And so in the midnight hour, the life of our world and our nation, I see men and women by the thousands running toward the church of God, trying to get the bread of faith, the bread of hope, and the bread of love. Very seldom, if ever in the history of the world, has a socio-political document expressed in such profound, eloquent, and unequivocal language the dignity and the worth of human personality. For the American dream reminds us that every man is the heir of a legacy of dignity. Yet ever since the founding fathers of our nation dreamed this dream, America has been, to use a big word that the psychologists and the psychiatrists use, a schizophrenic personality. Tragically defined. On the one hand, she has proudly professed the noble principles of democracy, and on the other hand, she has proudly practiced, or she has sadly practiced, the very opposite of those principles. Indeed, slavery and segregation have always been strange paradoxes in a nation founded on the principle that all men are created equal. And so often, America has trampled over the dream. So often America has scarred this noble dream. We look and see certain states saying they will never comply with the law of the land. In doing this, America is scarring the dream. We notice people who merely want to be free being brutalized, homes being bombed, churches being bombed. This is a way of scarring the American dream. We notice people who merely want to exercise their citizenship rights being thrown into jail. This is a way of scarring the dream. We can hear the voice of a little Emmett Till crying from the rushing waters of Mississippi. This is a way of scarring the dream. And so the Negro is still trampled over by the iron feet of oppression. And so often he has been pushed out of the glittering sunlight of last July and left standing in the piercing chill of an alpine November. This is scarring the American dream.
You can cut the tension with a knife. Our own United Church of Christ issued advisories to UCC congregations this week, warning those who are gathering in person to consider not meeting in person today, warning them about meetings on Wednesday, Inauguration Day, saying there's been chatter about targeting liberal churches, liberal synagogues. There's been chatter about targeting people of color, especially black men, targeting black men. The NAACP advising people to be very careful when they're out, where they are, remaining vigilant. Different times, different contexts, but I needed to hear Martin Luther King so badly. If only for the reminder that if there's more than just chatter about people being targeted amidst the threats and the tension, here we have a man speaking powerfully, eloquently, beautifully, who is very specifically targeted. Those final words in that video that we just heard, where he says there comes a time when people get tired of being plunged across the abyss of humiliation, where they experience the bleakness of nagging despair. There comes a time when people get tired of being pushed out of the glittering sunlight of life's July and left standing amid the piercing chill of an alpine November. He first said that publicly, as far as I could tell, in 1955. He was 26 years old. He offered those words 4 days after Rosa Parks had sat on that bus. What a great turn of phrase, one that would have lingered in the ears in 1955, one that helped him be Martin, not just another good preacher. You know and I know that the threats and the tension followed soon after and stayed with him all the way and ever present until that awful day at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. We know that he was targeted, that he preached in a cauldron of tension, that you could cut the tension with a knife. And we know that he said amidst that cauldron, within that cauldron, that we should love each other, that everyone needs this bread, the bread of love. These words weren't offered just out of sentimentality. We know that the calls to love each other from Martin Luther King had a very specific context, as ours does too. We must love each other today, but there is a context. There are a lot of calls at the moment for unity. When those calls are offered, it matters who says them. When calls for us to love one another are issued, it matters who says them. When calls for us to move past the current tension and rhetoric are offered, it matters who offers them. I've really been struggling with the themes of reconciliation, love, loving our neighbors over the course of the last couple of weeks, especially. You know, there can't be unity if some folks don't take the off-ramp at some point or another. There can't be unity if folks keep justifying the unjustifiable. There can't be unity if you want to follow the rabbit hole all the way to the bottom. I'm not sure how to help you if you are a white upper middle class person who believes that you have been oppressed or victimized or had something stolen from you when it was most demonstrably not. There is an addictive quality, an addictive flavor to the moment. For anybody that's ever loved an addict, I'm guessing you know this to be true. There comes a point or a place or a time or a moment where you realize that common sense doesn't do a lick of good. There comes a moment eventually when you have to say, I'll be here. I'll be here when you stop the madness. I'll be here when you come in from the field like the prodigal. I'll be here when you feel an inclination, even if it's just a tiny stirring within your heart, to take the off-ramp. And as soon as you do, I'll be waiting for you. And it will be our greatest moment together when you do. But right now, we can't keep screaming at each other. I will extend olive branches, but I will not be trampled on. I will not get stepped on over and over and over again. There is a line in the sand. There are places that you can't go, and there are things that I won't let you do, and I won't let you burn the house down without saying something. But the second you waver, the second you say, I think I'm ready to talk, I think I'm ready to try something else, I think I might be ready to talk about rejoining my people, then I'll be there. I will absolutely be there. There is a way, there is a path. You do not have to follow this president to the ends of the earth. And I think this is the job of Christians and people of conscience. That we may speak of reconciliation and pray for, hope for, search for a measure of unity, but shouting data, shouting information into the chaos doesn't do anybody any good. Joe Biden demonstrably won by millions of votes. The gap between rich and poor has grown significantly over the last 4 years. The president's mishandling of the pandemic has led to thousands of preventable deaths. It's all data, it's all information. And when it's offered by people we perceive as outsiders, it's largely useless. Whenever someone is committed to a path completely without reservation, you can only say, come and see. You can't compel them to come and see. You can't make them see through statistics, and you can't make them see through an exhaustive list of data sets. Nobody cares about Venn diagrams if they're offered by a source that you don't trust. Even the Bible seems to know this. Philip, having had an experience with a person and with divine love, wants to offer that experience of divine love to another person. So he finds Nathanael, who's understandably skeptical, and does not say to Nathanael, you know, after an exhaustive compilation of a bibliography reaching into the many hundreds of sources, and after spending years studying this topic, I've come to show you my persuasive data. Philip says to Nathanael, come and see. Our job is to lead lives of character and virtue, marked by love and hope, committed to continuing to create a community and communities of justice and truth-telling, education, and joy. To be the people we are called to be, teaching our children about race in America and how to lift up ourselves and others, and how to pursue the good and do the next right thing, how to love one another. Everyone needs this bread, the bread of love. Sure. And to be prepared. Our job is to be prepared, to be vigilant, not demand that someone follow our way because we have better data, but because the experience of love, of divine love, diverse community, is something we want others to come and see whenever they're ready for it. And if after today, with all that's going on in the world, you remember nothing of what I've said, and you remember a little of what Martin Luther King said, I hope you'll remember this. That in those times of tension that was so thick you could cut it with a knife, in that cauldron in which Martin Luther King Jr. preached, with all that was going on, he implored his people, anyone who would listen, anyone who needs this bread, everyone needs this bread, the bread of love. May we create the conditions in our lives, in our families, in our networks, and in our church. But this is our calling no matter what. To invite others to come and see faith, to come and see hope, come and see love. Everyone needs this bread. Bread of love. Peace be with you all.